Well, this is Jack Moelmann once again, and this is another one of our continuing series of theater organ personalities. We've got an exciting person today. It's July 4th, 2012. We're here at the Los Angeles Airport Marriott Hotel in conjunction with the ATOS annual convention here being held here in Los Angeles. And with us is a personality. He's becoming more of a personality all the time. His name is Ken Double. He started out we're going to ask him how he did this, but he was basically a sports announcer. So when it comes to talking on a TV interview like this, we call him Golden Throat. So anyway, welcome, Ken. And well, tell us first of all how you ever got started in music, whatever instrument.
Before we even get into that, happy 4th of July and Independence Day to Colonel Jack Moelmann and to anyone who might be viewing this as we record this on the July 4th and Independence Day in the U.S. And Jack, I grew up in Chicago, not unlike you, although not suburban. I was just inside the city limits of Chicago, Norwood Park, and the last of 6 boys, and my mother and father made sure we got exposed to music. And in my case, about 1960, when the organ craze was in full swing, so to speak, they bought a small Lowry holiday organ, and I started taking lessons, and the lessons continued and continued and continued right up till about the time I got into high school, and I was getting bored with the organ lessons to a certain degree. I enjoyed playing, but I had known since I was about 3 and first heard the announcer Jack Brickhouse that I wanted to be a sportscaster, and was moving my life in that direction when a high school teacher in suburban Chicago, a person that the folks in Chicago know, Jack Olander, took a group of us on a field trip, and I heard and had the opportunity to play a theater pipe organ. Later he took us to a concert at the Oriental Theater. I heard Gaylord Carter. What an introduction to theater organ concert performance. I heard the wonderful Gaylord Carter, and that was what they like to talk about today, Jack, the wow moment. That was my wow moment in theater organ, and I steered my lessons in that direction and continued taking lessons and playing while I was pursuing the broadcasting career, but never quite gave up on the organ.
Well, how do you look without your glasses on?
Like I used to look on television.
Now that's better because we're getting a terrific glare.
They're seeing the fauna and the whatever.
Well, we're in this hotel. We're in this hotel room, and it looked like your eyes were on fire. Okay, you had the broadcasting.
Depending on how many cocktails I have, sometimes they are.
Well,
but anyway,
we've both had a few. You've done the broadcasting. Did the organ and the music interrelate with the broadcasting in any way, or was broadcasting one thing and at hockey or whatever you did, and the music over here? Was there any interaction between the two?
Like 2 roads that were doing this, there was a little bit of this going on. Going back to my teenage years, you know, you had to have a job. We had to figure out a way to earn some money, and my father was one that, you know, you're going to have to work for a living, go out and find some work. So I had done some different jobs, and I thought by the time I was about 18, I said, I can play the organ here. I ought to be able to make some money playing the organ. I landed a job at Tommy Bartlett's Water Show in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin, and spent 3 summers during my college years earning a pretty good buck and having an awful lot of fun at Tommy Bartlett's show in the Wisconsin Dells, a resort area, and this was an outdoor water ski show. And as the silent film accompanists made music for silent movies, I played organ music behind the water skiers doing different acts and things during the ski show. A wonderful job. 3 shows a day, 7 days a week from the 2nd Saturday of June until Labor Day. But it was great fun. And then as I pursued my degree in radio and television in college, My senior year in college, they opened Market Square Arena, the big sports arena in downtown Indianapolis, where I was going to school at Butler University. And I landed the job as the house organist for the Indiana Pacers basketball games and the Indianapolis Racers hockey games. So while I'm going to school and had an internship at the ABC television station news department in my senior year, in the evenings I was going down and for, I don't know, about 40 or 50 bucks a game, was playing the organ for the hockey games at night. I can remember a wonderful guy named Mike Ahern did an interview with me as a college senior, and I can distinctly remember telling him, "This is fun, but you see that guy Bob Lamey down there who was doing the play-by-play of the Indianapolis Racers? I really want his job one of these days." And so there was this intermingling between the broadcasting and the music almost always in my professional career.
Did you get his job?
You know, later I did. The Indianapolis Ice was a hockey team that started in 1988. The first year they did not have any radio broadcast deal, but in 1989-90 I became the radio play-by-play guy, and they won the championship. My first year in hockey, the team won the championship.
Seems like everybody that plays the organ has some sort of background. Let me just ask a quick question. Were you ever a nightclub organist on a Hammond?
Not on a Hammond, but I'll say to you that I went initially to Southern Illinois University in Carbondale because they have a wonderful facility for broadcasting. They also have a faculty that did a lot of the work, and I became disillusioned. I went back home to Chicago, and that's when I took lessons from Al Melgard for about 8 months, which was a wonderful opportunity for me because it really helped fine-tune and get a greater understanding of theater organ style playing. But while I was in Carbondale, I worked with a wonderful guy named Keith Pierce, and he was the con organ dealer down there and a wonderful player. He played at the Holiday Inn Lounge. On a promotional deal, he put an organ in a little restaurant in Christopher, Illinois. And so I would take Keith Pierce's business van, this rickety old thing, and I would drive it 30 miles north of Carbondale to Christopher, Illinois, and on Friday and Saturday nights I would play the organ in the restaurant. And so, yes, indeed, I did that for a while. And on Monday nights, when Keith wanted a night off because he ran the music store all day during the day, and then Tuesday through Saturday, he would play at the Holiday Inn at night. So on, I think it was either Sunday or Monday nights, whatever, I would substitute for Keith Pierce at the Holiday Inn. And so, yeah, I played the bars, had that gig for a little while when I was 18 years old.
Another thing most of us did back in those days was playing in a pizza parlor. Now, did you ever experience that?
I did.
Regularly.
Actually, I did, and this is also kind of a funny story. My first television job was in Lafayette, Indiana, and after 3 years there, I stayed there a little too long when you're trying to build your broadcast career. And we had a little disagreement on what they were going to pay me to continue, and so I left the television station, and the only reason that I could get away with it was, God bless Donna Parker, was pregnant and out to here with Bethany. And she was playing at the Paramount Music Palace in Indianapolis night after night after night, and had to give that up, and they needed a substitute organist. And so for 6 months I played every night at the Paramount Music Palace in Indianapolis while I began looking for another broadcast job. And so I did the pizza parlor circuit for about 6 months, and that was also an education, not the least of which I learned I did not want to play pizza parlors for a living.
Well, that I know, been there, done that. Well, let's keep trying. How about a roller skating rink?
Never did that. Never played for roller skating.
Well, I did that one time. I hated playing some of those things, but I would normally push the button for all skate and let them all go.
I only played 2 weddings in my life. And one for a very good boyhood friend whose sister was getting married, and one for some family friends. But those were the only 2 weddings I ever. Never played at church.
Really?
Never played at church except those 2 weddings.
Gosh, I do it all the time.
Yeah.
I get the theater organ and the church organ mixed up now and then, but
to the delight of the congregation,
yeah,
I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, you go around and play the pipe organ, theater organ, quite a bit. You've teamed up with a an instrumentalist.
I stumbled across a wonderful guy named Skip Stein. I was invited to go to York, Pennsylvania to play at the Capitol Theater in York, and it was a concert they wanted to do with a big band. And when I talked with the conductor of the band how we were going to do this, I said, well, the easiest thing to do is get vocal arrangements, and where the singer is supposed to sing, that's where the organ will play. And that's what we did. So he said, well, what do you like to do? I said, well, I've been playing some Harry James stuff. He said, oh, I got a guy who played trumpet for the Harry James band for a while. And so we put together a medley of Harry James things. And at the rehearsal, the band starts up, and it sounded just like the recordings. It was a wonderful band, the Bob Clay Orchestra. And when Skip Stein started to solo on the trumpet, I thought, my God in heaven, Harry James has landed on a cloud and onto the stage of the Capitol Theater in York. At which point it was time for me to start playing, and I completely missed my cue because my jaw was dropped to the floor enjoying all this big band music. And I'm sure the band members were wondering, what bozo have we gotten stuck with here? So we did the concert, it went really well. I was invited back a year later, and after the concert I pulled Skip aside and I said, we have got to do some work together because I think our audience would really enjoy hearing you play. He's a wonderful musician. He plays a sweet, fat, beautiful, big, full trumpet sound. Wonderful for ballads. He can hit the big high notes and split your hair in half, but that's not what he's all about. He's all about this beautiful sound, and I've been very fortunate to have had the chance to play 17 or 18 concerts with him now, a couple of conventions, and I think the audience really enjoys it. It's something a little different. It allows the organ to be a big band in the background while Skip does his trumpet solos. The other thing is, he's a wonderful human being. There isn't the first egotistical bone in his body for a guy who studied with George Swift, who was the principal trumpet player for the Mantovani Orchestra, and has this great background. Played in the pit orchestra with Sammy Spear for the Jackie Gleason show, live from Miami Beach. He's got a lot of wonderful stories, and we've had an awful lot of fun, and it's been a great collaboration.
Well, great. I was just trying to think of another way of approaching this. And as you've traveled around playing the organ, let's deal with this as a solo performance rather than a duo or something. What is the most exciting, thrilling concert that you ever gave, maybe in terms of the venue, the organ, the audience, the whatever, the greatest thing you've done so far?
There are two. The first one, I'll say, was a wonderful accident. I had the opportunity to play the Chicago Stadium Barton for a hockey game. It was an exhibition game in September of 1987, and this was after Dave Junction had gotten in and gotten the great Barton organ in wonderful condition. Nancy Faust was the organist, the wonderful player who was the headliner at the White Sox baseball games. Well, on this particular September night, she had a White Sox game and a hockey game on the same night, and God bless America, she called me and asked me if I would substitute. The game was fun on a Sunday night, but Jack, the magic was I had the preceding Monday with the stadium organ and the empty building to myself for about 4 hours and had a chance to play that wonderful one-of-a-kind instrument. And on the one hand, that was clearly the musical thrill of my life, particularly knowing that that sound will never ever be recreated again, and what a shame. But equally as important, when I was working on television in Lafayette, Indiana, we started working on the old Mars Theater, which became the Long Center for the Performing Arts. And in resuscitating that old vaudeville house, an old friend, Carol Copeland, who at the time was in his 70s, and in his 70s and retired as a band teacher and band conductor in high school, fulfilled a lifelong dream and became the manager of an old vaudeville house. He played a little theater organ going back to his days. So we eventually installed an organ in this theater. We had hoped to premiere it in the fall of '81, and there was a delay. So we wanted to then premiere it and publicity out in December for a holiday concert of '81, and there was a further delay. We finally premiered it in February of 1982. All those delays, coupled with the fact that I had been a television personality in Lafayette for several years, we sold 2,400 tickets. We sold out the house twice. By this time in February of '82, I had left Lafayette, Indiana, and I was working on television in Indianapolis. It was a ratings month in February, and so I was one of the sports anchors at this time doing reporting during the week, anchoring the sports on the news on Saturday and Sunday. With 2,400 tickets sold, 1,200 each night sold out, I went up and did the concert Friday night. The television station would not give me the night off of my sportscasts on Saturday. However, I convinced them that this was big news, and they allowed me to take the helicopter with a photographer up to Lafayette. So I did the sportscast at 6 o'clock. At 6:30, we drove to the helipad. We landed in Lafayette at 7:30. We got a police escort to the theater. I did the concert at 8 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, we got a police escort back to Lafayette, the park where we landed the helicopter. Flew back to Indianapolis. My intern wrote the 11 o'clock show. And so in tuxedo, I was handed the script. I jumped on the set and did the 11 o'clock show. So there was clearly mixing sportscasting and organ. But to have 1,200 people in anticipation of that organ fill that house was absolutely the most thrilling performance I've ever had. And then I had the opportunity to do it twice, Friday night and then again Saturday night with the whole helicopter ride. The silly things we do when we're young, but that was an unbelievable night.
How about, let's take this in reverse. What was the most challenging program you ever did that you hope it's never repeated? It was just a disaster. And sometimes you can't remember that sort of thing. Maybe I've had several, but you know, briefly describe what those were.
I was invited to MC and play at the I think it was 1 Buffalo Regional Convention, and I was to play at the Riviera. I had forgotten that 2 years previously I had okayed a concert date at the Detroit Senate. So as it worked out, I did not MC. I did I flew to Buffalo, rehearsed the concert, flew back to Detroit, rehearsed, played that concert. The airlines canceled my flight back to Buffalo. I got one of the Detroit people to drive me after the concert. I got back to Buffalo at like 3 in the morning, had to play at the Riviera at 10 in the morning, and that concert was a sweat till I lost 8 pounds disaster. The other one was the Milwaukee convention where I played the Afterglow at the Al Ringling Theater. And I had forgotten that was one of those Butterfield Bartons where half the Barton organ was a straight organ and you had to couple things like crazy. Dick Wilson, who is here now as we record this, came up to me after that concert and said, "I've never seen an organist sweat so much in my life." Those two were probably 2 concerts I wish I had all over to do again, or to say thanks but no thanks again.
Well, let's try this one for you, Ken. Where is somewhere that you haven't played that you want to? Some place that you consider an ultimate achievement if you ever got the opportunity to play, that you haven't played at all?
There are, again, it's always in twos. Maybe it's reflective of my name double. I think 2 of the most exciting sounds in the theater are Shays Buffalo and the Oakland Paramount. And maybe both for different reasons. To me, there was nothing more exciting than either Jim Roseveare or Jim Riggs at the Oakland Paramount. I just loved the sound of that organ. To have an opportunity to play there would be special. And the same thing for Shays Buffalo. That sound in that theater is just special. And to have the opportunity to play there someday would be a thrill.
Well, good. We need to sort of bring this to a close because, well, we could go on for a long time because you have an exciting career and you're very active in the ATOS management. We'll save that for another chapter. So any final comment, and then we'll close this down.
I thank Jack Olander for being what great teachers are, an inspiration. He introduced me to the theater organ and set me off on something that I feel very fortunate about. I've had 2 careers in my life, one in sportscasting and one in the theater organ. I've never worked a day in my life, but I've been fortunate enough to get paid for it, and I can't imagine a better way to go through life than that. And I thank Jack Olander for introducing me to the theater organ and letting me enjoy music in an entirely different light. It is the most wonderful and exciting sound there is. I hope we can have more success in getting more people to understand just what a special instrument the theater pipe organ is.
Well, we want to thank you, Ken Double, for being on this video, this program. Today, just as a repeat, is July 4th, 2012. We're at the Los Angeles Airport Marriott, which is a very, very nice place, as a matter of fact. I'm surprised we didn't get a plane flying over while we were doing this.
We stayed here when I was broadcasting for the Indiana Pacers back in 1984.
And the place is still standing.
Indeed.
So, this is Jack Moelmann. We'll see you on the next video. And thank you again, Ken.
Thank you, Jack. It's been a pleasure.